year. That's the RoxNet PFAS team. Originally, the event was scheduled for this year, but because of COVID, it had to be postponed. But essentially, what the agency and ORD is doing, it invites representatives from state, tribal, and island environmental agencies to come to a ORD research facility. It's an opportunity to network, get to know ORD principal scientists, to find those connections so that the attendees can go back to their agencies and work on environmental issues of concern. So this year, well, moving into next year, one of the things we identified was PFAS, and then Susan will be from the Florati of the Yurok tribe will be participating in that event. And you can hear more about that this afternoon when both Susan and Matt present at 2:30. So I invite you to also attend that session. Another activity that's ongoing is involving the LUS program, and I'm trying to characterize the emissions and so on from those tanks. So they're basically using some geophysical methods to help in those investigations and hopefully come up with a better way to characterize sites early and to help inform the remediation process. So that project is still underway. We don't have the final results yet, but it's been almost a year and a half now, so that should be wrapping up fairly quickly. And in general, a lot of the projects that we do at the regional level that is supported by ORD, be it a RARE project or a RESIS project, they usually have a 1 to 2 year lifespan. And then moving on to another priority, which is drinking water. It's very important. It's one of the things that we've been doing over the years to really ensure that all people can get safe drinking water. One of the things we do is conduct triennial audits of tribal, territorial, and state laboratories. That's just part of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And what we do, we go to the laboratory to make sure that the laboratory is following all of its procedures to ensure that it's testing the water samples properly. So for FY 2021, we'll be conducting 4 on-site audits of tribal laboratories. Another part of that priority, for this year is Water Division is embarking on a tribal PFAS sampling activity event next spring, next summer. And we will be supporting that. Specifically, our laboratory, the EPA laboratory, will be analyzing the samples. In the past, we've analyzed drinking water samples for lead and other constituents. And this will be another way that we continue to provide support to the tribal community on this important matter. So this is another plug for another session that's happening next week, Wednesday at 9 a.m., where Ian Chin of Water Division will be presenting more on that particular topic. And then the last priority is the harmful algal blooms. That's an area that we've been providing support probably for the last 10 to 15 years, I believe, right now. And Cynthia, who will be presenting, will provide more background on that particular topic. But we know HABs have a significant impacts on subsistence fishing, cultural, ceremonial rituals, recreational activities, agriculture. And then one of the concerns we have is with this early fire season, we are hearing a lot from experts and scientists who are predicting that next year is going to be a particularly bad year for HABs. So that's something that we'll probably just have to prepare for. But it's an area that is very important, whether it's in terms of providing postings to recreational waters or, just identifying water quality that folks need to be careful and mindful of. It's an area that we've been providing a lot of support over the years, and it's one we want to continue doing. So with that, I want to turn it over to Cynthia Williams, who works at the EPA lab, who will present more about this particular priority. Cynthia?
Thank you for the introduction, Duane. Let me share. Okay. All right. Thank you again for the introduction, Duane. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I switched to my headphones last second. But today I'm going to just give a quick presentation highlighting the EPA Region 9 lab, discussing some of our activities that we have done and continue to do to support tribes and our tribal partners before focusing on our work on the analysis of harmful algal blooms. So the lab originally opened in 1970 in Alameda, California, but for the last 26 years, we have been located in Richmond, California. Although our lab is made up of a small group of EPA staff, fee grantees, and contractors, we're able to accomplish a wide variety of activities. I felt the best way to demonstrate our activities was visually, so I'm using maps that we have created off of previous year's work. So the Region 9 lab is a full service laboratory that not only offers lab analyses within Region 9, but much more. Before I go through the legend, I want to first zoom out so you truly see the coverage of R9 Labs services and activities. So the black circles you see are our chemical and biological analyses that we have completed throughout the country. We analyze thousands of samples for both recurring and new projects every year. One of our recurring projects that Duane mentioned earlier is analyzing drinking water samples from tribal schools and facilities to determine lead concentrations in drinking water. Another project is our ELISA microcystin analysis, which I will be discussing in the coming slides. So next you see our field work and support in green. Our field services include collecting environmental samples, conducting field audits, conducting on-site field analyses at Superfund sites, and providing technical assistance and training. At a number of our sites, our field team have deployed water quality sondes, and these sondes allow for continual and real-time monitoring for parameters such as pH, temperature, turbidity, chlorophyll, dissolved oxygen. I may have missed a couple, but for several parameters. And these sondes have been deployed at water bodies at Superfund mine sites such as Copper Bluff, and this is in collaboration with HOOPA EPA to monitor quality and quantity discharge of the mine into the Trinity River. We also participate in investigations. One of those that were conducted was for the Navajo abandoned mines, or abandoned wells, I'm sorry, where the purpose was to quickly assess human health and environmental threats posed by leaking abandoned oil and gas in Navajo Nation. So next, we also have our drinking water evaluations and overviews that Duane also just touched on. The Region 9 Lab operates the Regional Drinking Water Laboratory Certification Program, or LCP. And our two main functions are providing oversight of drinking water LCPs of each state and territory that hold primacy, and then also conducting audits of state, territory, and tribal drinking water labs. We certify the drinking water labs to analyze chemistry and microbiology parameters under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And the tribal drinking water labs that we currently assess are White Mountain Apache Tribal Utility Authority, Yerington Paiute Tribal Health Clinic Lab, 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians Laboratory, Bishop Paiute Tribal Environmental Lab, and Navajo Tribal Utility Authority Laboratory. The final layer is our capacity building. So this is kind of a mixed bag of activities that includes tours, presentations, sending emergency supplies our Pacific Island territories and trainings. One example includes training college students from, and I apologize if I say this wrong, Duane College, and this was to conduct physical habitat bioassessments at Navajo Nation abandoned uranium mines. Another example is training on microsystem analysis. So over the years, we have provided training at our laboratory, and we've offered split sampling to aid laboratories in setting up their own capacities. And we continue to offer these services. But today I'm gonna again focus on one particular topic, which is our harmful algal blooms. I'm gonna discuss why lab analyses of harmful algal blooms are important, and I'm also gonna touch on our work in this effort. So here are 4 water bodies that each have a harmful algal bloom event occurring. I want to point out that there are times where you may not be able to have this type of visual indicator. Sometimes you may have situations like this. If each of these samples were taken from a different water body, could you visually identify which water body is having a harmful algal bloom event? Based on our lab results, the answer would be no. In fact, all of these samples would result in a caution, warning, or danger sign posted around the water body, and some closed to the public. And this is why lab analyses to identify harmful algal blooms are a vital tool to use. So I know there may be some new people in the audience that may not have that much information, so I want to give a quick little background. So CyanoHABs, harmful algal blooms, cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, there are several different ways that these are, or names given, and I'm going to try and stick to just a few to eliminate confusion. But these cyanobacteria can form blooms, and these blooms can lead to very low oxygen levels in the water column, resulting in fish kills and dead zones. The blooms can affect benthic plants and animals due to decreased light penetration. They can also produce different toxins, which I'm going to highlight here because I want to talk about it further in the next slide. Something that gives them a competitive edge is that some have these gas vesicles that allow them to regulate their buoyancy. So during the day, they can come to the surface, they can relax, chill, gather up all the sunlight to perform photosynthesis. And then at night, they get to descend and they get to find all of these nutrient supplies, such as iron, phosphorus, and nitrogen. So for this slide, I don't want you to be alarmed. I'm gonna walk you through, there's some key takeaways I wanna point out. So first, as I pointed out in the previous slide, cyanobacteria can produce toxins, and these, there are several different ones, and these are called cyanotoxins. Here, I changed up my slides last minute, so I do apologize. I want to point out here, so as you can see, the names of cyanobacteria are repeated in this table. For instance, Anabina. There are different cyanobacteria that can actually produce more than one toxin or cyanotoxin. And finally, if these toxins are ingested in large quantities or at elevated concentrations, each have a different primary target that they attack. And I want to read this from, I got this from the EPA website cited below, discussing some of the symptoms for humans, for people and for pets. When people are exposed to cyanotoxins, adverse health effects may range from a mild skin rash to serious illness, or in rare circumstances, death. Acute illnesses caused by short-term exposure to cyanobacteria and cyanotoxins during recreational activities include hay fever-like symptoms, skin rashes, respiratory, and gastrointestinal distress. Cyanotoxins can also harm pets, wildlife, and livestock. Pets and other animals can be poisoned through drinking toxin-contaminated water or by swimming in waters with a cyanoHAB. Symptoms of exposure to HABs in pets can include excessive salivation, fatigue, difficulty breathing, vomiting, diarrhea, and seizures. Death can occur within hours to days of exposure. So you may wonder, how do the harmful algal blooms thrive? I've given several presentations on HABs, and I've always gotten this question, and I want to stress that it varies. The sources or perfect conditions that cause HABs for one water body may be completely different for another. However, there are some key or common traits. One is a nutrient supply or source, and this could be from wastewater treatment plants, rainfall, agriculture, fertilizer, or manure, fossil fuels, soils, sediments, septic systems. Also, temperature plays a huge role. Typically, summer months is when you will see an increase in harmful algal blooms. They favor in drought-like conditions, stagnant water. Also, expansion kind of plays a role, because as we have urban and industrial expansion, we have more buildings, more homes, parking lots, hard surfaces, which can lead to an increase in nutrient pollutants in stormwater runoff, and then a host of other variables. So where do they occur? In summary, everywhere. But more specifically, freshwater cyanobacteria generally bloom in quiet waters such as lakes, coves, and backwaters, but they can bloom in or be transported to water bodies of all kinds. One example could be a bird landing in one water body with a HAB and then going and landing into another. As I've kind of alluded to, cyanobacteria are adaptable, and they can adapt to many different extreme conditions, such as they can tolerate light, temperature, moisture, oxygen. They can be in flowing and non-flowing waters, which already contradicts my previous slide. They can be on the surface at the bottom of the water body. But again, they can essentially occur everywhere. So what are the impacts? It's pretty much everything. Drinking water, Indian tribes along these water bodies can be highly impacted. Aquatic habitat, you can have resources and revenues lost due to recreational activities being limited or closed to the public, and a host of others. And so why is this important? So again, building on the previous slides, one thing is this is a recurring issue. In Region 9, we have several water bodies that have recurring harmful algal blooms. Each and every year, our state, local, and tribal partners have to gear up for the season. They have to anticipate trying to get samples analyzed prior to a long holiday or special event weekend, so that they can post or close access in order to protect public health. And unfortunately, sometimes in addition to visual monitoring, lab analyses, dog deaths are the initial indicator of a harmful algal bloom event. As stated in the previous slides, pets will get into the water, they're going to ingest a larger amount, they're going to go and they're going to drink the water if you're walking your pet. So again, this is sometimes an initial indicator. At the Region 9 lab, back in 2006, Andy Linkoff developed the ELISA method for analyzing microcystin in recreational waters. Sue Keitel, who works at the EPA regional office, is the contact and the coordinator. So she makes contact with our clients. She contacts us, confirms that we have capacity, and then myself, Rich Bauer, and Susan Lefe are the analysts. Since 2006, we have analyzed thousands of samples. I do want to point out that our numbers are lower this year due to the pandemic. We started back late in July analyzing samples, but we are working to analyze the backlog of samples that have been collected earlier this year. We can also look at it from a client perspective. As you can see, we have a lot of repeat customers. We have operated in emergency one-time situations. For instance, East Bay Regional Park District, although they have set up their own capacity to analyze these samples, they still send us split samples for deposting. And so many of our state and tribal partners, as I stated before, use our results to determine where posting and closures of water bodies are necessary in order to protect public health. In California and Oregon, posting or closing of water bodies are based on these trigger levels and advisory values that you see here. I put these up. These are just a couple of examples of posting from this year based off of our results. Okay, yes, I do have another example here. And so with that, I want to close with a little surprise. We have been trying to expand our capabilities offered for harmful algal blooms over the years, and I am excited to announce that we have recently purchased a LCMS triple quad, literally in the last few days. We are hoping to get this unit delivered to us by the end of the year and installed so that we could start method development. We also got an LCMS triple quad for PFAS analysis. I know that's a separate topic, but for harmful algal blooms, just know that this will allow us to analyze additional cyanotoxins, and not only recreational, but we could also expand to cover drinking water as well. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for this time, for your time and attention, and we can take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. And
there was one question in the chat box. It just says, where point discharges contribute to HABs, what can EPA do to enforce WQS compliance, and are there enforcement measures that can be applied?
I would say I would have to reach out for that answer. At the lab, we're just pretty much responsible for analyzing, but I could reach out to Sue Keidel and our enforcement team and respond back privately.
And that was the only question in the chat box.
so thank you. We'll make a note of that question as Cynthia indicated, and we'll circle back. I think that's you, Mervin. I think that question came from you. Does it exist? I'm not too sure. We'll follow up with Water Division and provide share the information we hear back with you. So at this point, we just wanted to open it up to any other questions you may have about any of the priorities that we've shared today, or additional questions for Cynthia about HABs, or just what we do at the LSASD in particular. Okay, I see one from Caroline Yee. Are you coordinating with tribes in collecting samples? Yes, that's usually the way we operate. For example, when the drinking water lead samples that Cynthia mentioned earlier on, those are collected and then they're shipped to the regional laboratory, and then we conduct those analyses. And then with regard to the planned event for next spring or summer regarding PFAS, which will be covered at the presentation next week, again, we'll be working with the tribes in the collection of the samples and analyzing them. So there are times when we actually may go out ourselves and collect samples at the lab, but many times we rely on the customer's own sampling activities, and then once they're shipped to the regional laboratories, we conduct those analyses. So we do both. Okay, then I have another comment from, let's see, Mervyn. It would be important that a fact sheet or notice be provided so that tribes can engage with finding a solution. Yeah, okay. And I'm not sure what Sue has been doing in the past in terms of that coordination or coming up with that fact sheet. But that's certainly a suggestion we can take back. I think whatever as Cynthia mentioned from the presentation, this has been an issue we've been working with since 2006, and now with the new capabilities of the LCMSMS, it will allow us to identify a lot of the cyanotoxins. So with more information, I think we can actually develop those types of fact sheets and the things that we can provide to educate everyone. And it's the challenge I think we have, and which Cynthia alluded to, is the fact that the conditions that lead to the HAB creations are different for different water bodies. So it might be a little bit of a challenge to kind of identify some common factors across all bodies. But I think as we develop more expertise or experience regarding certain water bodies over the years based on the information we have, it might be possible to identify those factors, and where there might be point sources in particular, as you mentioned, it might be something that we can probably provide some solutions to. But we'll go back and take a look at that. I actually think that's a really great idea. So we'll see what we can do along those lines. Okay, the next question, and it says, how do PWSs address HABs on CCRs? And I have to admit, Audrey, maybe you can help me out here on some of these water programs.
I think they're saying public water systems address HABs on
the CCRs.
I don't know CCRs.
Yeah, that's what I was drawing a blank on. Sorry, could you elaborate, please? Maybe the person is typing. But if we, let's see, how to. Sorry, annual water quality. Let me address this. Okay. The clarification is annual water quality reports may address taste and odors as not a health hazard. That I think we'll have to look into, and it may not be something that we can necessarily put out any information about, but I think certainly working. Okay. Here's an example, another comment. Here's an example of a water quality system in Clear Lake that puts it on their CCRs, and there's a link to it. Cynthia, remind me, were we helping Clear Lake on this? Or I know we used to do some analysis for them in the past. Do you know?
Yes, we do microsystem analysis, and I know I have spoken to a couple of people about doing split sampling as they were developing their capability or trying to develop their capability.
Okay, I got some clarification in the chat from Carola. Thank you. We do recreational for Clear Lake, or we've done that in the past, and she does the drinking water. CJ, is it possible to, I think Carola is muted, everyone's muted. Is it possible to unmute her? Carola, would you be interested in just sharing a little bit more with the group about what you do in that regard? If you don't mind, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself if you'd like to explain the question. Or Vanessa, I don't know if you can give her capabilities.
Okay, she's going to connect her mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Carola Kennedy. I'm the Water Resources Manager over at Robinson Rancheria. But previously, for the past 4 years, I've done drinking water microsystem analysis for the Clear Lake water systems. There's 18 water systems that collect water for 75% of Lake County. And they've been struggling with the HABs. So for the past 4 years, I've been doing the analysis with manual ELISA assay system and doing their raw water, their intake water, and their finished waters so that they can hopefully see what they're coming up against coming in and how their system's treating. So I've been working with the Drinking Water Division with the California State Water Board, and they're working with the water systems on optimizing their systems. She's also put together a microsystem barrier score for each water system, looking at what their barriers are treating for this toxin. This year is a new year for us. Well, every year is a new year. We get new stuff, new toxins. This year we got anatoxin. There was some of the systems that had it in their raw water, but did not have it in their finished water. For myself, on my work that I do with the drinking water, I've only done the microsystem with the ELISA system. I've not yet taken the anatoxin on, but I'm working towards that. But I was also having a conversation with Audrey a little bit about getting accredited for this, for the Method 546 for California, the ELAP, and I'm just inquiring on that. So if anybody in the EPA division can help with that, I would love some assistance. But yeah, so I'm just, this is a program I've been doing. Initially, I started it with the tribes, or with working with the tribe, and was doing it as I build the water systems, so it's a paid for program. They pay for the program. I give them my time, they pay for the consumables so that we can do this. And I can keep it at a low rate for them to be able to look at this, because we are challenged, of course, economically over here in Lake County. So, but that's a little bit about the program that I do over here. And yeah, I'd love to share any other questions, or happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. The CCR is that's the California Consumer Reporting. Is that what it's called?
Yes, well, it's your consumer confidence report. So every water system has to do a consumer confidence report. And some of the water systems in Clear Lake that I've been sampling with do put the analysis that I do for them every 2 weeks on their CCR. And they do also talk about taste and odor problems within their CCR. And there's communication with the public about it too on other levels. There has been a contractor that I believe EPA funded it, to come in and work with the system here, Highlands Water System, on creating a monitoring program for microsystem and also a public notification system. So we've been also working on those and the letters of how to notify the public and what that looks like. Thankfully, we have not had to do that yet. All of my finished waters with the water systems have come back below the 0.3 parts per billion. But this year we're getting some higher levels. I'm getting 27s, 30s in the intake, which is high for Clear Lake right now. and or throughout the years. So but it's getting more and more interesting and more challenging. And another thing to look at in the raw water too with your cyanobacteria, with your drinking water systems, is that cyanobacteria, when it dies off and breaks down, it becomes an organic matter. So then you have this organic matter that comes into your water systems, and that's even harder and more challenging for them to deal with. You're then throwing a bunch of chlorine at it, so you're getting disinfection byproducts. We also noticed this year with the water systems that the different types of cyanobacteria are really different for them to deal with in a treatment methodology. It's like gliotrichia was one of the cyanobacteria we got this year, and it had a tendency to float more, so it was really challenging them in their clear wells and flowing over the weirs. Microcystis seems to be a little easier for them to handle. And then the Lingbia, which we got this year, the sheaths on the Lingbia was peeling off, and that was binding up some of their mechanical systems. So it's an interesting year, but we do quarterly meetings with the water system, the drinking water system. California puts that, pushes for that, the drinking water division, and we discuss the water quality of the lake and how they're managing it. And it's challenging for them, that's for sure. They say that if a drinking water operator can treat Clear Lake water, you can treat water anywhere.
Well, actually, Cynthia, who just presented, she's also one of our laboratory certification officers. She's one of those who audits laboratories, and also has recently audited one of the auditors of the California ELAC program. So she can definitely be someone you can contact to get more information about, one, also just the ELISA and other methods that we are developing, but also talk about the certification program and address some of the questions you might have there.
Yes, and I just want to thank you, Carola. It's been a little while since we last spoken, and I want to thank you for sharing that information. Being at the lab, I don't really get to see kind of the before or after, or know some of these issues. And even though I analyze for harmful algal blooms, I'm still in that learning phase, and I'm always eager to learn. So I will definitely be reaching out to you to get some more information. So thank you for sharing.
You bet. No problem, Cynthia. Yeah, I have the fortunate advantage of being able to be the person on the ground, boots on the ground, collecting the water samples recreationally for Clear Lake, and also going to the water systems and collecting samples with them, and then also doing the analysis for them. So I really get the overview and a really good, vision of it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing as well, Carola, because that was the insights, like you making the fact of what you're doing with regard to drinking water. As you indicate, we've been focusing on the recreational waters, but I would just say, to the extent that we can actually provide more support on the drinking water side too, that's something I'm definitely very interested in doing. So I'll be circling back with Cynthia and the rest of the team to see how we can also provide that type of support. And Cynthia, I don't want to put you on the spot, so to speak, but I would imagine with the purchase of the LCMSMS, that would probably allow us to be better positioned to provide that type of support.
That is correct.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and working with the water systems has been definitely good. It's showing that there is constant levels coming through through the finished water, not above 0.3, but it is a constant. So there's that chronic exposure, and working with the drinking water division, they are now looking at making it mandatory for the Clear Lake water systems to sample next year, and that is part of the accreditation that they want me to look at going after, because I am doing the EPA method 546, and the quality assurance that's behind that, the different quality control samples. So yeah, I look forward to working with you guys further on that, and hoping to get some help on that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, CJ, I don't see any other questions in the chat, or if anyone wants to unmute themselves, and ask the question.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Sarah Ryan with the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians, and I jumped into this 40 minutes late, and so I apologize if I'm asking something that you already covered. But one is, are the labs? Did you go over kind of the plans for the labs? Because I know there's a lab consolidation that seems to be happening for the Region 9 lab, and it looks like they're back up and operational, but do they have, but there's like a slower response. I'm just wondering if there's going to be any changes for this upcoming fiscal year in terms of responding to water quality analysis and things like that.
Thanks for asking the question. And Sarah, no, I did not cover that earlier on. And so just for everybody, it's the EPA has embarked on a priority of what we call lab consolidations. Basically, it's where EPA has labs in leased facilities. We're moving those operations into another federally owned building or even an EPA building in that particular respect. So for Richmond Laboratory, we are going to move some operations up to the Corvallis lab that's run by Office of Research and Development, ORD. But we're also going to keep a local facility here in the Bay Area that will have analytical capabilities as well as field support. All of our field support is going to remain local, and then we'll also have analytical capabilities at that local facility. For these types of support, like HABs and so on, that's going to remain here in the Bay Area. It's not moving to Corvallis. So we'll be able to continue providing that quick turnaround service for all of our clients. And that move from Richmond to the local facility, it hasn't been identified yet. That probably won't occur until maybe, and I'm guessing right now, late 2020, 2021, or even into 2022. So between now and then, there's no drop-off in providing support. We're continuing to take samples. The samples that we would take that would be analyzed in Corvallis, we'll be notifying our clients around maybe like a 3-month advance notice, letting them know that we might be able to provide support for a certain period of time. But for the time being and for now, you can expect all of the samples for HABs will continue being done here in the Bay Area, and there should not be any interruption or very minimal interruption of service when we move from from the Richmond facility to the other local facility. Other than that downtime, we'll be able to continue providing this level of support.
And I want to add, hi Sarah, if you were speaking about sampling for this year, we have started back taking samples since July. So I did notice we haven't seen anything from Clear Lake this year. So you may want to reach out to Sue Keidel to coordinate.
Hey, Cynthia, it's only because the turnaround time is 2 weeks, and we're looking at we need results more quickly than that for public health purposes. It's been quite a year on Clear Lake, as I heard Corolla saying, but we really appreciate the opportunity. And so I don't know if there is going to be a change in the turnaround time, because it seemed to be about a week last year, but COVID, I know, has affected everything. So that's been our only delay, is just that it's been, or hesitation is the turnaround time right now.
Yeah, we, even though it's still a 14-day turnaround time, I think the longest it's been is about 10 to 11 days. As we move into higher phases, we are opening and going in more. So I do anticipate that those times will be coming down soon.
Yes, we entered phase 2 as part of our reopening yesterday. So that means we are expecting to be operating more like normal conditions, quote unquote normal conditions. So as Cynthia said, this is so important. You know, if you have some samples and you need it from it's because of the public health postings and so on, it's very critical. Please work with us and we'll do our best to meet the turnaround times that you need.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if no other questions, I thank you all for participating. Thank you for your questions, and we'll take a we'll record all of the questions in the chat box. I know we have some action items. I know Mervyn, you had some suggestions, so we'll definitely be taking those down and getting back to everybody. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the meeting today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.